Kondo Nitoete, Nitoekani. This particular video is going to be pretty hefty. In other words, it's going to be quite a long duration. So if you're not ready to watch it, go ahead and go to the next video. With that being said, this is a brief description about, the coordination of my grandfather, my late grandfather, also known as the Etingan, also known as the Abon, also known as the Edidem, also known as the king of Calabar, the whole Calabar. At that time, he was the ninth. So there were 8 other kings prior to him from my lineage that ruled the whole of Calabar. So the coronation took place at the Duketown Presbyterian Church, Yamba Street, which I believe still exists till today. On the 21st, it took place on the 21st of November, 1987. So that was exactly about 11 years before I was born, So let's get into this. There's his name. This is the official pamphlet and souvenir program from the Efik Ediriana Edi Uforo. This is him at Efik Asabo, His Royal Majesty Edidem Otu Ekpeyon Efa the 9th Otu Mesembe. And this was after the Uyara Ntinya Efik Asabo of May 22nd, 1987. So first they began with the procession and recession with the standard bearers. Then it was the secretaries. Then it was the 3rd representatives of Efik royal houses. Then it was my grandfather's children, which my mother is one of them. And it was then His Royal Majesty. Number 6 was members of Etubom's Traditional Council. Number 7 was chiefs of the Abong's Council. Number 8 was members of Coronation Service Planning Committee. Number 9 was representatives of Efik houses. Number 10 was Esop Indito Efik Lagos. I don't know if that group still exists today, but I'm sure there's like a sub-group there in Inca and Lagos, I believe. Then it was women groups at number 11. And then number 12, it was men's groups. And 13 was culture societies. With that being said, before I proceed, I remember being about age 4 to 5 years old, and I seen the coronation of my grandfather. This coronation was so fascinating. Edems that I've never seen again till this day. My grandfather was sitting there on his throne, and I was just like in shock. I've never met my grandfather, but the only way to know this guy is like, this guy to me is like Michael Jackson. Knowing this guy is the king, of our people. But I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's kind of like looking at it like, oh, your grandparent is the president of the United States or something. I don't know, And I'm not trying to get political with anyone, but I'm just trying to express on how I felt and looked up to my grandfather. As I always looked up to him, as most of us look up to our grandparents and our parents. So it was just like seeing him that I was scared. I'm seeing this man sit on the throne. I'm like, what if I met this? I could have met this man if I knew my grandpa, but I didn't meet him. So to me, he was like a ghost or something. With that being said, that's just how I felt about my grandpa at that time. So I wanted to just find out as much as I can. Search this man on Google. I didn't really see this, deity in the flesh on Google and biography and all these things, The route of the procession was the palace that took place at Efanga and South Street, that then went to Egerton Street, that then went to Calabar Road, that then went to Garden Street, that then went to Thorn Street, that went to Yamba Street, then went to Duketown Presbyterian Church. From the church went to back to Yamba Street, then from Yamba Street went to Afyong Street, then went to Ayo Edem Street, then went to Egerton Street, then went back to Efanga and South Street, and then it finished at the palace, I believe. I don't recall seeing everything. The only thing I remember seeing at his coronation was the displays, all different kinds of displays, real Nabo displays, and Ekpe displays, Ebonko, all these things, and different, like Ophium and all these things, Then it was the coronation ceremony of His Royal Majesty of Edidim Utu Ekpe Father Ninth. At 9:30 was the arrival of guests invited to take their seats. 9:35, members of Cross River State Executive Council, service chiefs, the chief judge, and others take their seats. At 9:40, the military governor arrives. At 9:45 a.m., His Royal Majesty and entourage are led into the church in procession of bishops, clergy, elders, and choirs. This page is the table of events. From Monday, damn. So it took, okay, so this was about like 5 days of a coronation. If you want this, you can purchase this from me for a very reasonable price. Let's continue. The coronation service of the Abang of Calabar is the approach, the word, and then the crowning. I'll read the crowning. The crown is delivered by Dubum Ofyong Ita, who hands it over to Pastor E. Okon, National President of the Apostle Church Mission. The Secretary of Dubum's Traditional Council, Chief Edward E. Nyong, delivers scroll to the Very Reverend M.O. Ogadekwe, Moderator, Duketown Presbyterian Church. His Royal Majesty repeats the Christian oath and signs it. Then there's a witness to the oath. The moderator, Duketown Presbyterian Church, representative of government, which was Mr. Okon E. Ayo, Secretary to the Military Government and Head of Service. The chairman, Etubom's Traditional Council, Etubom Ofyong Ita. The secretary, Etubom's Traditional Council, which was Chief Edward E. Nyong. And then the chairman of the Coronation Service Planning Committee, which was also late, who was a successor of my grandfather, late Etubom Kobam Iboko, who also became the Abang of Calabar later on. Pastor E. Okon places the crown on the head of His Royal Majesty, assisted by bishops and clergy. Then it's the prayer, then it's the special anthem, then it's offertory, then it's the dedication of offerings, then it's the announcement, then it's the doxology, congregation, then the benediction, then the recessional hymn, then His Royal Highness is escorted to the palace. These are the hymns. I don't know how it goes, but I'll just read the lyrics for one of them. Sing Alleluia forth in this virtuous praise. Yea, citizens of heaven, O sweetly raise in endless Alleluia. Yea, powers who stand before the eternal light in hymning choirs re-echo to the height in endless Alleluia. The holy city shall take up your strain, and with glad songs resounding wake again in endless Alleluia. In blissful antiphons, yea, thus rejoice, to render to the Lord with thankful voice in endless Alleluia. You get the point, Then it was a scripture from Psalms 20. The Lord hear the day in trouble, the name of the Lord God of Jacob defended thee. Send thee help from the sanctuary and strengthen thee out of Zion. Remember all thy offerings and accept thy burnt sacrifice. Grant thee thy heart desire and fulfill all thy mind. We will rejoice in thy salvation and triumph in the name of the Lord our God. The Lord perform all thy petitions. Now, know I, the Lord, helpeth his anointed, and will hear him from his holy heaven, even with the wholesome and strength of his right hand. So forth. Okay. Then, I don't know what this section is, but I'll just read it to you. It reads, Esieni tiaba ke fogeri. Bupuru mo eri idibi Jacob akpanwana. Nbare mo ukomeke. Kore se abasi ibom. Amaka anam edi osono. Efik eburutu. Motono ntak mpo. Akpa Efik mbakara ekebe ke esok nyen. Efik oro Efik ntem. Nte anyanya. Aswana tutu osum idot nsan. I'm trying, you know. Otu ekpenwe fa ufo na yo. Eni edi dem ke eburutu. Ebe ko odo nyente. Ngwo odo komo. Eba odo ebe ko te nte iton odo nme. Edi ya abong odo ekpepo. Edi ya abong odo lebepo. Eyene kono fi omodo obon. Eba odo se ebon obonde. Ete iri abong obon imo. Abong efe iri obon kenne. Usuk usenesed ama mpo. Usuk usenese ema ima. Esira ma mpo nini. Otu ekpenga akparawa ebepo. Enyen sek nte ebegi. Esere nte ebegi. Utok ekpan. Eri abasi ibom emek ono Efik. Obon yin. Ekpri akpan okobo. Akpan okobo odono mpo uwak ekese. Enye na kama Efik mbet. Ubok edem ira. Mana buyono ekikak okutuk Efik. Enye na emiri yen. Ukpongatai. Amana ntutu osin anwakan. Edikpa eyen ebebe. Ye ukon. Eteke nko esik eri obon imo. Eyene eti mpo ntreke ira aset. Esik kadat mi ye eti mpo mi. Abasi ibon eyen mum kama no Efik. Efik yeneke iboto. Iboke afo ikpon. Akwa abasi ono fi nete ono. Ete itie donte iboto ufo edim. Man iboko edibi ke ide akifo. Ofok mo nte eka unen ofok ndito. That's how it reads here. I tried with my Efik, but yeah, I tried. You know, it's been a while I've read Efik, and yeah. So here's the page about my grandfather, a brief history about him. Efik, or not about my grandfather, about Efiks. Efik is a tribe originally made up of 12 clans. Hence the proverbial saying, Ami eyen ndem Efik esien due baba, meaning I, the offspring of the Efik tutelary god Ndem of the 12 clans. These 12 clans sojourn at Ibom in Arochukwu. Later, they started to move out to found places like Enyong, Itu, Ukwa, and Iki, where they still, to this day, are neighbors to Umon, Agwagune, and Arochukwu. Here, the Nwangs left to the establishment and settlement on the shores of Calabar, thus becoming the first Efiks to reach what later became Canaan to the whole tribe, or Canaan. They are also remained here until they gradually joined by the kith and kin from Creektown. It was after the quarrel between them and their neighbors that they finally moved out to Calabar to settle in some of the Atlantic islands that are now component parts of the Oron local government in the newly created Akwa Ibom state. This is facts, okay? You see it here. From the official Efik Edidiana Ediuforo. The main group continued to dwell in Uruan until the quarrel and subsequent fight over an axe dispersed them to various parts of the Cross and Calabar rivers, and today, Efiks occupy a geographical area that spans 3 of the 7 local government areas of Cross River State, Initu and Oron in Akwa Ibom State. They are also to be found in the Cameroons, where in 1877, Reverend Alexander Ross of the Church of Scotland Mission, while on a visit there, observed that there were at least 16 towns which spoke the Efik dialect or tongue. Esiene Fogitiaba, 7 Efik clans. That's where we come from. When I was told that we come from the 7 clans that later dispersed out to 12 and whatever. Today, after the vicissitudes suffered by the Efiks as a result of a very long, checkered history of migrations, the Ibokus and those who kept themselves together from Uruan to Ikorbani to Creektown to Calabar had constituted themselves into the Esiene Itiaba, or the 7 Efik clans. With the Wang Enyong, Ito, Ukwa, and Neki having struck out individually to find their own settlements, and Abayan and Usugaba seriously depleted in number to the point of absorption by other groups. The groups therefore reorganized themselves to maintain the unity of 7 clans as follows. Iboku Isik Edik, comprising Creektown and its dependencies. Iboku Utan, comprising Duketown, Henshaw Town, Cobham Town and their dependencies. Obutong, Old Town and its dependencies. Adiabo and its dependencies. Mbiabo Edere and its dependencies. Iko Neto Mbiabo Uso. Ikorofyong. So those are the 7 clans. It may be mentioned that there are many Efik groups have miscegenated into extensive areas in the Cross River, Akwa Ibom rivers, and Imo states, where they have become parts of their respective areas of habitation. The kinship. The Efik tribe recognizes the following social structures. Esien, clan group centered in the 7 original Efik settlements. So I come from the original Efik settlements. As you can see, Adiabo's there. Iboku Utan's there. Iboku Esekid's there. Ubutang's there. Mbiabo is there. Ikoneto is there. Ofyong is there. These are facts. This is historical facts. You can't erase history, okay? The Efik houses. The history of Old Calabar is the modern history of the Efiks who, like many other coastal city-states, did not just react to events, but created and determined history to the community. Their house system grew naturally from the patriarchal character of the Efik social system. The units that coalesced and formed themselves into what became the tribe had first formed themselves into family groups, recognizing a common paternity ever before the Efiks arrived at their present habitation. This common paternity is born out first by the 12 and later by the 7 clan structure emanating from Atay and branching out into Efiomekpo. From these stocks we have the following components. Here it is right here. Atay, Eyoama, Atay, Oku Atay, Adim Atay, Upang Atay. Then you have Efiomekpo. Nsi Efiom, Edem Efiom, Oko Efiom. The houses in all their ramifications therefore sprang from the components or founding ancestors of Efik Iboku. The system did not arise from trade contracts with European traders as is commonly and erroneously believed by people. Rather, it was already there and served as an admirable vehicle for stabilizing and regulating trade. When Great Duke Ephraim, I don't know if it's the 9th, Efiom Edem was king of all of Calabar from 1814 to 1834. That's 20 years. The houses, which were nearly 30 in number, were drastically reduced by him to 15 and originally controlled by him. No one dared engage in trading except through him. When he died, he was succeeded by King Iyamba is that the 5th or 4th? I'm bad with Roman numerals. But all the houses immediately shook off Duke's totalitarian control and proceeded to strengthen themselves into independent settlements, which Hopewater described in 1846 as petty republics. Today, the houses have been increased to 32, and some of them are even felt to be large enough to warrant the establishment of more units. The Efik kingship points to note. Efiks throughout their migrations at various times among the Igbos or Ibibos were still and remain believers and adherents to monarchical government. This structure was and is still built on firm grassroots based on families, houses, clans, and clan groups, each of which has distinctly evolved through the centuries with the Edidem or Etinyan or King or Obong of Calabar, with the actual period of their reigns clearly identified. Despite commercial, historical, and political pressures at one time or another, even during Efik Civil War, the Henshaw Dukarian War, Efiks have always accepted that wherever they sojourned or lived, they were always one family. As Archibald III and Henshaw III agreed after the Civil War in 1875. The Obongship succession evolved originally from one ancestral line. Damn, one ancestral line. The Obongship succession evolved originally from one ancestral line. So I'm believing that's like one lineage, right? Who that lineage is, I don't know. Yeah, cool. Today's succession rotates around all the Efik ancestral lines traceable to Atai in Efiomikbo. Thus, we have in recent years Edidem Edem Archibong, Okoefium, Edidem Archibong II, Okoefium, continued by Edidem David James Henshaw, Nsafium. Edidem Esienekbo, Oku, the fifth, Oku Atai, Edidem Basia from Adam the third, Okoefium, and now Edidem Otu Ekpong the five, Ukpong Atai, each succeeding the other in a single strengthened line of kingship as grand patriarchs and paramount ruler of all Efik people. Etubums are the heads of houses and kingmakers. The most senior or eldest Etubum in each clan is the Ibuot Obio, or clan head. Like my Etubum Otu, Efik. That's my Etubum and the head of my family. Well, yeah. In the coronation ceremonial ritual, specific functions, for example, an abolition or anointing with oil, before the crowning of the new king are traditionally performed by the clan heads or designed by members of their houses. The Efik royal lineage goes back to antiquity. It is the oldest known and recorded dynasty on this side of the river of Niger. I'm going to say that again. It is the oldest known and recorded dynasty on this side of the river Niger. It is ancient origin, its unmistaken and undisputed lineage to the present day confers on it a most distinct position which has been recognized in and outside of Nigeria. In spite of the above, one cannot consider the Efik monarchy simply as an ancient throne on which sits a king. To the Efiks, the king was still and is a sacred priest, a concept still adhered to Bini, Ifi, and Ashanti. The Efik people from the grassroots are governed by a sacred trinity of the throne, the Ekpe and the Ndem. Some have called this Efik tripod the throne which its king is protected by the great powers of the Ekpe and Ndem, each with its power and its independent conclave. It is therefore important to realize that it's in accordance with the Efik belief while dealing with the king whose position and functions are visible and communicable, the ritual strength of the throne is even more powerful than the visible elements. An understanding of this fact will make it clear why Efiks everywhere are so tied and devoted to their throne. So tied and devoted to their throne. And why anything they may rightly or wrongly consider to be against the king touches them personally and deeply. The sensitivity to the throne embodies their sensitivity to the ritual trinity, which is the very foundation of their reputation of loyalty, and not only to their king, but to wherever such loyalty is expected of them. On this auspicious day, we send up our prayer to Almighty God to guard our shores from every foe, with the peace, our borders blessed, with prosperous times, our cities crowned, our fields with plenteousness. Some paraphernalia of the kingship. The Ikpaya Raffia robe worn by the Obong is believed to be embodied with psychic purity and is capable of killing anyone who wears it by default or with evil intentions. Ayang. This was originally unique to the Efik people, but is now universally used in what is now popularly known as the Palm Belt. So we as the Efiks, we own that. We started that. This is a broom held by the Obong to signify that his subjects are under his protection. It is here mentioned that the use of palm fronds or any articles made from it, whether it's the Ikbaya Ayang Isanda and the raffia necklace worn at the traditional ceremonies, or palm fronds to decorate a canoe crossing the river or to decorate a hearse, signifies Efik belief in the protection and the protectiveness of the influence of the palm against evil. Akata is the wooden throne made from the whole wood and decorated with symbols of the tribe. Ntung and Irang, Ndang. The footrest to signify weight and authority and stability of office. So that's Ntung and Ndang. Then Tinya is the Efik traditional crown made with rope and trimmed at the base with leopard skin. The present Ntinya Efik, as currently fashioned, had its origin from Adiawa, where I'm from, and was designed by Didim Utume Sembe. That's my great relative, you know. Upong Ataiboku. So by Didim Utume Sembe Upong Ataiboku. Again, this design has gained much popularity among the other tribes in some parts of the Cross River and Akwa Ibom states. Ikara is a split sword said to have originated in 500 BC and used in almost all West African kingship in various shapes. It is a symbol of power. In Efik legend, the Ika is regarded as the source of divine power for Efik kings or Ndidem, who are regarded as the descendants of Etienne Abasi. There goes that word again, Etienne Abasi, or ancestral father. Held by the Obong, it signifies power and authority. It is used in psychical traditional ceremonies as a symbol of divination with power to lead its holder in any mystical probe. The Usanirang or Usanabasi. This is regarded as God's plate or God's basin. Tradition has it that it had its origin from sun worship, from worshiping the sun. It is a sacred dish used in the kingship installation and other royal rites. Hope Water describes the use of the basin in this book 29 years in the West Indies and Central Africa. The Mpang Iruat, this is a spear, scepter, and is held by the king to signify his purity, power, and royalty. Oti, this is a royal gong, which is used for the recitation of the Aseo, or ballads or praise, poems in honor of the king. The Nuknen is the elephant's tug signifying strength, and the Monyo is a sacred scepter held only by an Ekwe official to confirm the Obong's coronation. So this is my grandfather's entourage, with my grandfather right here, and then that is his successor, who although became the Etinyan of Calabar, or Obong of Calabar, Edidim Koban Boko. Sorry, let me not missay his name. Ekobam and Boko. Sorry, forgive me. And then here's the coronation planning committee at the bottom. So there you go. One of your ancestors, or maybe one of your friends' ancestors, are here. Now here's the genealogy table of His Royal Majesty Edidi Otu Ekpenyong Father IX from Ataiboku. It's 4 at the top, from Oku to Ema to Ukpong to Adim. Then it goes tranquilizing into transitioning into Ekpe, from Ekpe to Esien, back to Ekpe to Ansa. Antiga to Ukpong to Edidi Otu Ekpenyong Father IX. I don't know if this was his grandparents on one side. Yes, I believe I don't even know. I don't really know. I got to look more into this. And then from Ukpong, it goes back to Ukpong to Mesembe, into Otu, into Efa, Namiti, Ewa, and Esu. This is the family member of my family, I believe. Then Efa, Ekpenyong Efa. Then there's Otu. Then Ekpeong, okay, Mardiama. Ekpeong, I believe, had all these kids, and then they had this. Otu went to Okun and to Okpong, then and now went to Mary. Then they had Otu Ekpeong Efa, grandpa, on my mother's side. This is the coronation planning committee, which Edidem Koba Neboko was the chairman of. You can see it at the top. This is all facts, historical facts. You know. Then it finishes off with the appreciation. The coordination planning committee expresses its deepest gratitude to the church dignitaries, the Esopindito Efik Lagos, managing director, Glad Tidings Press Limited, Calabar, Efik families, women organizations, cultural associations, Calabar community organization in Lagos, and the numerous well-wishers who contributed to make this event a successful one. Now, with that being said, like I said, this pamphlet, this souvenir program, oh my God. This souvenir program, as you can see, is like ripping. This is 11 years before I was even born. I was born in the 90s, man. You know what I'm saying? With that being said, I watched this coronation of my grandfather at like the age 4 or 5, and maybe watch it again like when I was 9, when I found the tape. It was on a VHS tape. This is one of the most fascinating coronations that was presented up to date. His coronation was one of the best coronations I've seen up to date. Like I said, I've seen Edems that I haven't seen since that time. I seen my grandfather sitting on the throne. He was very calm. But he scared me though. Like I was like, I'm looking at a ghost, but it's my grandfather, and he was also the king in Africa. And to me, it's like the same way I looked at Michael Jackson is the same way I looked at my grandfather. I told myself that once I, get older, I'm gonna make it my due diligence. I have this ambition as a young adolescent. Once I get older, I'm going to make it my due diligence to not only uplift my culture and preserve my culture and give this history of the history that I learned through time and the research and things of that nature, that I'm also going to uplift my family name and also going to make a name for myself, for my kids that come in the future and stuff like that. So, if you want this pamphlet, contact me. I'll be selling it, selling them, not it, the original one. You could have a replica of this pamphlet to preserve. This is the original pamphlet, original. Now, if any of you guys have the coronation of my grandfather out there, I am willing to pay money to have that coronation because I need that. I shouldn't have to pay money for my grandfather, but I know how things are. Times are, So, this is for the preservation of who Efiks are. They say that Efiks are identity is. You must be crazy, man. Any of y'all that think that something that has been here far, far, far back, and you see people like me in the flesh, how could the culture die? I feel like as far as awareness, we are bringing the most awareness bringing the awareness back. So if you stay this long for this presentation and this story time and this historical facts, who my grandfather is also history for our people and was a spokesperson for our people and all these things, I love you so much, and I'm never going to let your name die as long as I'm breathing. You know what I'm saying? Whoa. Thank you. So